welcome to Sleepy Story Facts, and to this very special sleep story created just for you. Tonight, you are not required to do anything at all except allow yourself to arrive here, in this moment, in this quiet, and in this gentle space that has been set aside entirely for your rest, wherever you are listening from. Whether you are tucked beneath a soft blanket, lying on your side in the familiar dark of your own room, or resting somewhere peaceful and still, you are exactly where you need to be. The day is behind you now. Everything that was asked of you, every thought that pulled at your attention, every task that sat on your shoulders, you can set all of it down. Gently, without force, simply let it go the way a leaf releases from a branch at the very end of autumn, not falling with any urgency, but drifting slowly, quietly, finding its way to the ground in its own time and in its own manner. This is your space now. This is your time. This calming bedtime story will stay close to something you already know intimately, something you have done every single night of your entire life, something so natural and so necessary that your body already understands it far better than your waking mind ever could. Tonight, this relaxing story will guide you gently into the world of sleep itself, the science of it, the psychology of it, the soft and extraordinary things that happen inside your mind and body when you close your eyes and surrender to the night. You do not need to memorize anything. You do not need to analyze or hold on to a single word. You can simply listen the way you might listen to rain on a window, not trying to count each drop, but just letting the sound wash over you, steady and soothing and endlessly patient. Before this gentle bedtime story begins to unfold, let us take just a moment together. A small, unhurried moment that belongs only to you. If it feels comfortable, let your eyes close. Let your hands rest wherever they have naturally fallen. Take a breath in now, slow and quiet, drawing the air in as though you are breathing in the stillness of a calm midnight room. Hold it for just a heartbeat, and then let it go, long, slow, and easy, like a tide pulling back from a shore. Again, breathe in through the nose, soft and deep, filling the lungs without effort, without strain. And breathe out, releasing, softening, sinking just a little more into whatever is holding you. Feel the weight of your body now. The way your head rests against the pillow, the way your shoulders have perhaps already begun to fall away from your ears, the way your legs feel heavy and still. There is nothing to carry right now. Gravity is doing the work for you. One more breath in, slow and full, and breathe out, long and calm, letting everything loosen just a little more. With every breath out from this moment forward, you are allowed to let go just a little more quiet, a little more rest, a little more sleep. As your breathing settles into its own natural rhythm, unhurried, unconscious, perfectly your own, this nighttime story will begin to drift around you like soft music in another room, close enough to follow, gentle enough to release. The science of sleep is one of the most soothing and quietly astonishing subjects that exists, because every single fact within it is a fact about you, not about distant galaxies or ancient civilizations, but about the extraordinary and deeply personal thing that your body and mind do each night when the world goes dark. Sleep is not an absence of living. It It is not a pause or a gap. It is one of the most active, purposeful, and beautifully coordinated processes your entire being knows how to perform. And tonight, wrapped in the deep calm of this sleep story, you are going to drift through 100 of the most relaxing, most wondrous, and most gently fascinating facts about sleep science and the psychology of dreaming. Each one will arrive slowly, like a lantern floating on still water, glowing softly for a moment, then passing on, leaving behind nothing but warmth and a growing, deepening sense of ease. You do not need to count. You do not need to remember. You only need to rest and breathe and allow the words to carry you. The night is quiet around you. The room is soft and still, and somewhere behind your closed eyes, the most remarkable journey your mind and body take together is already beginning to call you toward it. Gently, the way sleep always does, not demanding, never forcing, but simply waiting, patient and warm, at the edge of your awareness. Let it wait. Let yourself drift toward it. And let this calming narration be the slow, steady path that leads you all the way there. One soft breath, one gentle fact, one quiet wonder at a time. It is one of the most comforting things to understand about sleep, that your body already knows exactly what to do. The moment your eyes grow heavy and the world begins to soften at its edges, an extraordinarily precise and beautifully organized process begins to unfold inside you. One that scientists have spent decades studying with great care and quiet reverence. In the 1950s, a researcher named Nathaniel Clayton and his student Eugene Asarinsky made one of the most important discoveries in the history of sleep science. Working in a small laboratory, watching the slow movements of sleeping eyes, they identified something that would change everything. That sleep is not one long, undivided state of unconsciousness, but a series of distinct, cycling stages, each one with its own character, its own purpose, and its own particular kind of quiet magic. Before this discovery, many people believed that sleep was simply the brain switching off, the way a lamp dims when you turn the knob. But what Asarinsky and Clayton found was almost the opposite. Sleep, it turned out, was a landscape, layered and structured, moving through valleys and plateaus in a pattern that repeats itself gently and reliably throughout every single night of your life. Right now, as you rest and listen to this gentle sleep story, your brain is preparing to begin that descent. The first stage of sleep is called none, and it is the softest threshold imaginable. It is the place you are perhaps approaching even now. That warm, hazy border between waking and sleeping, where thoughts begin to lose their sharp edges, where the sounds around you start to feel farther away, where your body grows heavier without any effort at all. None lasts only a few minutes in most people. It is the briefest of doorways, a slow exhale between one world and the next. You may have experienced the small, gentle jolt that sometimes happens in this stage, a sudden twitch of a leg or arm, a fleeting sensation of stepping or falling, just for a fraction of a second before everything settles again into stillness. Scientists call this a hypnic jerk, and it is entirely natural, entirely harmless, a small physical echo of the transition your nervous system is making from wakefulness into rest. Beyond that doorway lies entwo, the second stage of sleep. And this is where the body begins in earnest to do its quiet work. Your heart rate slows. Your body temperature begins to fall, just slightly, like the cooling of a room as the evening deepens. Your muscles loosen further, and your brain begins producing something remarkable: bursts of rapid, rhythmic electrical activity that researchers call sleep spindles. These spindles, which appear on brain scans like brief, dense waves of light, are thought to play a crucial role in memory consolidation, in taking the experiences and information of the day and weaving them carefully into long-term storage. The way a patient hand sorts and files precious things so they will not be lost. You spend more of your total sleep time in entwo than in any other stage, which means that for much of every night, your brain is quietly, tenderly organizing the story of your life. Deeper still lies N3, also known as slow wave sleep or deep sleep. And this is the most restorative territory of the night. In this stage, your brain produces long, rolling waves of electrical activity called delta waves, vast, slow oscillations that move through the mind the way deep ocean swells move through open water, powerful and unhurried and immeasurably calm. It is in this deep stage of sleep that your body releases the greatest surge of growth hormone, repairing tissues, strengthening the immune system, rebuilding the small damages of the day with extraordinary efficiency. Your blood pressure drops, your breathing becomes slow and even. And if someone were to gently say your name in this stage, you likely would not stir at all, because the mind has traveled somewhere very far from the surface. There's also a fourth territory in the sleep landscape, REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. And this is the country of dreams. In REM sleep, your eyes move beneath their closed lids in quick, darting patterns, and your brain becomes almost as electrically active as it is when you are fully awake. Your muscles, however, become temporarily and gently paralyzed, as though your body knows that the mind is about to travel and has quietly locked the doors to keep you safe and still. Throughout a full night of restful, deep sleep, your body cycles through these stages approximately 4 to 6 times, each cycle lasting roughly 90 minutes, each one carrying you through its own version of this slow, magnificent architecture. The night is not empty. It is full of quiet restoration, full of dreaming, full of the deep biological kindness your body offers you each time you close your eyes and allow it to do what it was always designed to do. And as this relaxing story drifts softly around you, you can feel that architecture beginning to build itself beneath you, stage by stage, breath by breath, carrying you gently and inevitably toward deep, beautiful sleep. Long before alarm clocks existed, long before electric light changed the shape of the evening, and long before any human being thought to measure time with hands on a dial, your body already knew exactly when to sleep and exactly when to wake. Buried deep within the brain, in a tiny cluster of nerve cells no larger than a grain of rice, sits one of the most elegant and ancient pieces of biological machinery that evolution has ever produced. It is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it is your internal clock your circadian rhythm, ticking away with quiet, faithful precision every single hour of every single day of your life. Whether you are aware of it or not, the word circadian comes from the Latin words circa and dies, meaning approximately a day, and that is exactly what this internal clock measures. A cycle of roughly 24 hours that organizes nearly every biological process in your body, from the rise and fall of your body temperature to the timing of your digestion, to the particular moment each evening when your brain begins to release the soft, drowsy signal that it is time to rest. That signal is a hormone called melatonin, and it is one of the most beautifully simple and profoundly powerful chemicals your body produces. Melatonin is made in a small gland at the center of your brain called the pineal gland, a structure so centrally placed and so mysterious in its function that the 17th century philosopher René Descartes once believed it to be the seat of the human soul. Each evening, as the light around you fades and the darkness of night begins to gather, your pineal gland receives a message from the suprachiasmatic nucleus telling it that the sun is going down and that the body should prepare for sleep. In response, it begins releasing melatonin into your bloodstream in a slow, steady, rising tide. You cannot feel this happening. There is no sensation, no signal that your conscious mind registers, and yet the effect is unmistakable. A gradual, gentle heaviness that settles over your thoughts, a softening of your alertness, a quiet pull toward stillness that grows stronger as the evening deepens and the melatonin level in your blood rises toward its nightly peak. What makes the circadian rhythm so extraordinary is not merely that it exists, but how old it is. Scientists have found versions of this same internal clock in almost every living organism that has ever been studied. In mammals and birds, in fish and insects, in plants that open their leaves toward the morning light and fold them closed again at dusk, and even in single-celled organisms that have no brain at all. The circadian clock is older than the dinosaurs. It is older than the first forests. It emerged in the earliest chapters of life on Earth, when the only important fact about the world was that the sun rose and fell in a reliable rhythm. And any creature that could align itself to that rhythm gained an extraordinary advantage. Your internal clock carries that ancient inheritance within it. When you feel sleepy at night and alert in the morning, you are not simply responding to habit or routine. You are participating in a biological conversation that has been taking place between living things and the movement of the sun for hundreds of millions of years. The circadian rhythm also governs something called the sleep pressure system, which works in quiet partnership with the internal clock to ensure that sleep arrives at the right time and with the right depth from the moment you wake each morning. A chemical called adenosine begins to accumulate in your brain, a natural byproduct of neural activity that slowly and steadily builds throughout the day, like water rising in a quiet reservoir. The longer you are awake, the more adenosine accumulates, and the greater the pressure to sleep becomes. By the time evening arrives and the melatonin begins to rise, the adenosine in your brain has reached its gentle peak, and the two systems, the circadian clock and the sleep pressure work together like two hands pressing softly on your eyelids, guiding you down into rest. And then, while you sleep, something quietly remarkable happens. The brain clears the adenosine away. By the time morning comes and you open your eyes, the reservoir has been emptied, the pressure has been released, and the cycle begins again. Fresh, patient, and as reliable as the turning of the earth itself. As you lie here now, breathing slowly, letting the words of this nighttime story drift around you like smoke from a candle that has just been gently blown out. You can feel both of those forces working inside you. The ancient clock, steady and sure, and the soft pressure of the day behind you, easing you forward into the deep, dark, restorative quiet of sleep. There's nothing you need to do. Your body knows the way. It has always known the way. It was born knowing the way. And every breath you take right now is carrying you further along that familiar path, deeper into the night, deeper into rest, deeper into the extraordinary and soothing landscape of deep sleep. Somewhere in the quiet hours of the night, when your body has already passed through the softer, shallower stages of sleep and descended into the deep restoration of slow wave rest, something extraordinary begins to happen. The brain, which has been producing those long, rolling delta waves, fast and slow and deeply calm, begins to shift. The waves quicken. The electrical activity rises. The sleeping mind begins to hum with something that looks, on a brain scan, almost indistinguishable from full wakefulness. And yet, the body remains perfectly still, gently held in place by a temporary and entirely natural stillness of the muscles, as though the brain has drawn the curtains and locked the doors and given itself permission to travel somewhere that the body cannot follow. This is REM sleep. This is the country of dreams. The discovery of REM sleep in the 1950s astonished the scientific world, not only because it revealed that the sleeping brain was far more active than anyone had imagined, but because it suggested that dreaming was not a random accident of a resting mind, but a deliberate and purposeful biological event. Something the brain chose to do, returned to again and again throughout the night, and defended with remarkable persistence when experimenters tried to deprive sleepers of it. When people are woken repeatedly every time they enter REM sleep, they begin to enter it more and more urgently on subsequent nights, as though the brain is insisting on what it is owed, pushing harder toward that dreaming state with each attempt. Scientists call this REM rebound, and it tells us something deeply important: that dreaming is not optional. It is necessary. One of the most widely respected theories about why we dream comes from the neuroscientist Matthew Walker, who describes REM sleep as a form of overnight emotional therapy. During REM sleep, your brain replays the emotional experiences of the day, but it does so in a neurochemical environment that is uniquely gentle. The stress chemical norepinephrine, which floods the brain during moments of fear or anxiety when you are awake, is almost completely absent during REM sleep. This means that your brain can revisit difficult, painful, or emotionally charged memories without the sharp sting of the original stress response. It can process, soften, and file those experiences away in a way that leaves them less raw, less jagged, less heavy. You may have noticed this yourself, how something that felt overwhelming the night before can seem more manageable, more distant, more bearable after a full night of deep sleep. That is not simply the passage of time doing its quiet work. That is REM sleep, gently smoothing the emotional edges of your experience while you rest. Dreams themselves are woven from a remarkable and sometimes surprising mixture of memory, emotion, sensation, and imagination. The hippocampus, the brain's great memory librarian, is deeply involved in dream construction, drawing on stored experiences and weaving them together in combinations that do not always follow the logical rules of waking life. This is why dreams can feel both deeply familiar and utterly strange at the same time. Why you might find yourself in a house that feels like home, but looks nothing like any home you have ever known, or speaking with someone you recognize whose face keeps gently changing. The dreaming brain is not bound by the same constraints as the waking mind. It moves fluidly through time and space, connecting things by feeling rather than by fact, by emotional resonance rather than by rational sequence. Some researchers believe that this loose, associative quality of dreaming is not a flaw, but a feature. That by connecting ideas and memories in unexpected ways, the dreaming mind is performing a kind of creative problem solving, finding patterns and links that the more linear waking brain would never have thought to look for. There is evidence that people who sleep well before tackling a complex problem are more likely to arrive at creative solutions than those who do not, as though the dreaming mind has spent the night quietly rearranging the pieces into a more useful shape. As you drift deeper into this relaxing sleep story, you can let that thought settle around you like a soft blanket, that even now, in the rest you are moving toward, your mind will be doing something quietly beautiful. It will be tending to you, sorting, soothing, connecting, creating. It will take the textures of your day and work with them gently in the dark, the way a skilled and patient hand smooths clay, not forcing, not rushing, but shaping something gradually into something softer and more whole. The country of dreams is not a foreign place. It is one of the most intimate and personal landscapes you will ever visit. It is made entirely of you, your memories, your feelings, your imagination, your history, and every night, without effort, without intention, you travel there. You have been traveling there your whole life. And tonight, as this gentle nighttime story carries you slowly forward on its warm, unhurried current, that country is already beginning to appear at the very edges of your awareness, soft and welcoming and endlessly, peacefully yours. There's a process happening inside your brain right now, or rather, a process that is preparing to begin as you drift closer to the deep, slow wave sleep that waits for you at the bottom of this quiet, unhurried descent that was entirely unknown to science until remarkably recently. For most of human history, the brain was considered almost unique among the body's organs in one particular way. Nearly every other tissue in the body is served by the lymphatic system, a vast and intricate network of vessels that acts as the body's waste disposal and immune support system, quietly collecting metabolic byproducts, cellular debris, and harmful proteins and carrying them away so that the body can function cleanly and efficiently. But the brain, protected behind the blood-brain barrier and enclosed within its bony casing, appeared to lack this drainage system entirely. Scientists knew that the brain produced waste. They knew that harmful proteins accumulated in neural tissue over time. What they did not know, until a groundbreaking discovery in 2013 by neuroscientist Macon Nettergaard and her team at the University of Rochester, was how the brain dealt with all of it. What Nettergaard discovered was something so elegant and so quietly extraordinary that it changed the entire scientific understanding of why sleep is not merely helpful, but profoundly, urgently necessary. The brain, it turns out, has its own cleaning system, and it operates almost exclusively during sleep. It is called the glymphatic system, named partly for the glial cells that make it possible, and it works through one of the most beautiful mechanisms in all of biology. During waking hours, the cells of the brain are pressed closely together, filling most of the available space within the neural tissue. But when deep sleep arrives, and those long, slow delta waves begin to roll through the brain in their vast, unhurried rhythm, something remarkable happens. The brain's cells shrink. They contract by as much as 60% of their waking size, opening up wide channels between them through which cerebrospinal fluid can flow freely. This clear, clean fluid, the same fluid that cushions your brain and spinal cord, rushes through these newly opened channels like a slow, gentle tide moving through a landscape that has just been quietly rearranged to welcome it. As it flows, it carries with it the metabolic waste products that have accumulated in the neural tissue throughout the day, washing them out of the brain and into the body's broader waste disposal system, where they can be safely broken down and removed. Among the most important substances cleared away by this nightly glymphatic tide is a protein called beta amyloid, a metabolic byproduct whose accumulation in the brain over years and decades has been strongly linked to the development of Alzheimer's disease. Every night of deep, restorative sleep is, in a very literal and measurable sense, a night during which your brain is protecting itself from the slow buildup of one of the most damaging substances it produces. Every night of poor or insufficient sleep is a night in which that cleaning cycle is incomplete, in which a little more residue is left behind. The implications of this discovery are as humbling as they are extraordinary, because they reveal that sleep is not a passive luxury or an optional extra added onto an otherwise complete life. Sleep is maintenance. Sleep is the nightly servicing of the most complex and precious organ in the known universe, carried out with quiet, faithful precision by a system so elegant that it only functions in the deep stillness of rest. You cannot replicate it with caffeine or willpower, or a brief nap stolen in the middle of a busy afternoon. The glymphatic system requires the full depth of slow-wave sleep to open those channels, to allow those cells to contract, to let the cerebrospinal fluid move through the tissue in its long, slow, cleansing wave. And as you lie here now, breathing gently, letting the words of this deep sleep story drift over you like the surface of still water touched by a very soft wind, Your brain is preparing to do exactly that. The day is dissolving, the noise is fading. The metabolic accumulation of all your waking hours, every thought, every decision, every sensory impression that your extraordinary brain has processed since you opened your eyes this morning, is waiting to be gently, thoroughly, and lovingly washed away. You do not need to do anything to help this process. You only need to rest. You only need to let the sleep come the way it always comes, quietly, inevitably, as natural and as necessary as breathing itself. The tide is already turning inside you. The channels are beginning to open. And somewhere in the deep, slow, velvet quiet of the sleep that is drawing you closer with every breath, your brain is preparing to do the most caring thing it knows how to do. It is preparing to clean itself, to restore itself, to make itself new again. Just for you, just tonight, just as it has done every single night of your entire remarkable life. There is a library inside your mind, and it never closes. Not during the day, when it is busily receiving new material, cataloging experiences, impressions, conversations, skills, and facts as fast as your waking life can deliver them, and not during the night either, because that is when the library does its most important work. That is when the shelves are quietly reorganized, when the temporary holdings of the day are carefully assessed, selected, and moved into the deeper, more permanent archives where they will be stored not just for tomorrow, but for years, sometimes for a lifetime. This process, the transformation of short-term memory into long-term memory during sleep, is one of the most well-documented and most quietly astonishing discoveries in all of sleep psychology. And it begins in a small, curved structure deep within your brain called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as the brain's intake desk, the place where new memories first arrive, fresh and vivid, but fragile, held in a kind of temporary storage that is rich in detail, but vulnerable to disruption. Everything you learned today, everything you noticed and experienced and processed, passed through the hippocampus. It is holding all of it right now, like a librarian with arms full of books that have not yet been shelved, waiting for the quiet of closing time to begin the real work of organization. That closing time is sleep. During the deep, slow wave stages of the night, your hippocampus begins to replay the day's experiences, not randomly, not passively, but in a deliberate and selective process driven by the sleep spindles that ripple through your brain in those dense, rhythmic bursts. These spindles, which you may remember from the earlier chapter on the architecture of sleep, act as a kind of transfer mechanism, carrying the fragile new memories from the hippocampus and helping to weave them into the vast, stable network of the neocortex, the brain's long-term storage system, where they become part of your permanent understanding of the world. What makes this process so extraordinary is its selectivity. The sleeping brain does not simply copy everything the day delivered and file it away unchanged. It edits, it prioritizes, it strengthens the memories that are connected to emotion, to meaning, to things that matter. It gently lets go of the clutter, the irrelevant details, the passing impressions, the noise, and keeps the signal. In this way, Sleep is not merely preserving your memories. It is refining them, shaping them, making them more useful and more deeply integrated into everything you already know. Research has shown this process at work in some remarkably clear and practical ways. Students who sleep for a full night after studying new material consistently perform better on tests than those who stay awake, even if the waking group spends more total time reviewing. A single night of good sleep can improve the retention of new vocabulary, new motor skills, new mathematical procedures, and new conceptual understanding by a margin that no amount of additional waking study can match. The sleeping brain is not resting from the work of learning. It is completing it. There is also a particularly beautiful phenomenon that occurs specifically during REM sleep, which contributes to this nightly act of memory consolidation in its own unique way. While slow-wave sleep handles the careful transfer of factual and experiential memories, REM sleep specializes in something more subtle and more creative: the integration of new information with existing knowledge, the finding of connections between things that were learned separately, the quiet weaving of new threads into the existing fabric of understanding. This is why a problem that seemed intractable before sleep can sometimes feel suddenly, effortlessly clear in the morning. Not because the answer arrived from nowhere, but because the REM sleeping brain spent the night gently exploring the space between what you already knew and what you were trying to understand, finding the bridge that the waking mind was too linear, too focused, too tired to locate on its own. As you sink deeper into the soft, unhurried current of this relaxing sleep story, you can let that thought be a comfort to you. Every question you are carrying, every skill you are building, every understanding you are slowly growing, all of it is being tended to right now in the quiet work that your sleeping mind is about to begin. You do not need to think about it. You do not need to try. The library is already dimming its lights, already beginning the slow, faithful process of taking everything the day brought and finding exactly the right place for it, deep in the warm, permanent shelves of your long-term memory. All you have to do is what you are already doing, breathing slowly, resting gently, letting the words of this calming bedtime story grow softer and more distant, like music drifting down a long, quiet hallway, as you allow yourself to fall slowly and completely into the deep, restorative, memory-weaving gift of sleep, of all the things that sleep does for you. And by now, you have heard enough of this gentle sleep story to understand that it does a great many extraordinary things. Perhaps none is more immediately, personally felt than what it does for your emotional life. The connection between sleep and emotion is one of the most profound and well-documented relationships in all of sleep psychology, and it speaks not just to how you feel on any given morning, but to how you move through the world, how you respond to the people around you, how you experience joy and difficulty, and everything in between. A brain that is well rested and a brain that is sleep deprived are, in a very measurable and meaningful sense, two different brains, and the difference between them is nowhere more visible than in the way they handle the full, complicated spectrum of human feeling. At the center of this story is a small, almond-shaped structure deep within the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is the brain's emotional alarm system, the part of you that detects threat, generates fear, produces anger, and responds with urgency to anything it perceives as dangerous or overwhelming. Under normal, well-rested circumstances, the amygdala works in close, cooperative partnership with the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for rational thought, perspective, and emotional regulation. The prefrontal cortex acts as a gentle, wise counterbalance to the amygdala's urgency, helping to assess whether a perceived threat is real, whether an emotional response is proportionate, whether the feeling arising in the moment deserves the full force it is demanding. This partnership, the amygdala's sensitivity balanced by the prefrontal cortex's calm wisdom, is what allows a rested person to feel their feelings without being overwhelmed by them, to respond rather than react, to navigate difficulty with a steadiness that feels, in the best moments, almost effortless. But when sleep is lost, that partnership breaks down in a way that is as dramatic as it is revealing. Studies in which participants were kept awake for extended periods and then shown emotionally provocative images showed that the amygdala of sleep-deprived individuals reacted up to 60% more strongly than that of rested participants. And crucially, the connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, that vital moderating pathway, became significantly weaker. The emotional alarm was ringing louder, and the wise, calming voice that usually answered it had grown quiet and distant. The result is something almost everyone has experienced at some point: the raw, exposed feeling of a day lived without enough sleep, when small frustrations feel enormous, when sadness sits closer to the surface than usual, when patience runs thin, and the world seems sharper and harsher and more difficult than it truly is. That is not weakness. That is not overreaction. That is the entirely predictable consequence of a brain that has been asked to regulate the whole, complex weather of human emotion without the nightly restoration that makes such regulation possible. Sleep, in this sense, is not merely a biological necessity. It is an act of emotional kindness toward yourself, the nightly reset that allows you to meet tomorrow's experiences with openness rather than defensiveness, with curiosity rather than anxiety, with the full, warm, generous capacity for feeling that is your natural and rested state. There is also a deeply comforting reciprocity in this relationship between sleep and emotion, because just as poor sleep amplifies negative emotional reactivity, good sleep actively enhances positive emotional experience. A well-rested brain is not merely less reactive to the difficult things, it is more genuinely receptive to the beautiful ones. It registers pleasure more fully, connection more warmly, meaning more deeply. It is more capable of empathy, more available for laughter, more open to the quiet, ordinary joys that pass unnoticed when exhaustion has drawn a gray veil over the day. As you rest here now, breathing slowly, letting the last conscious edges of your awareness soften and dissolve into the warm, wordless quiet that is gathering around you. You can feel the truth of this in your own body. the tension that the day carried is loosening. The emotional weight that accumulated in all the hours since you last slept is already beginning to lift, already beginning to be processed and soothed and set gently aside by the very same REM sleep that tends to your memories and smooths the jagged edges of difficult feeling. You are being restored right now, not in some distant, abstract sense, but in this breath and the next one, in the slow, faithful chemistry of your own extraordinary brain, working through the night with a care and a precision that no waking effort could ever replicate. The emotional tide is turning. The rested heart is already waiting for you, just on the other side of the sleep that is drawing you closer with every slow, soft, unhurried breath you take. There is an army inside you, patient, tireless, and extraordinarily well organized. And every night, while you sleep, it goes to work. Not loudly, not with any sensation you would notice, but with a quiet, purposeful efficiency that is as ancient as the immune system itself, which is to say, it is as ancient as almost anything in the living world. The relationship between sleep and immunity is one of the most practically important and most personally relevant chapters in the entire science of sleep psychology, because it speaks directly to the physical health of the body you inhabit, the energy you carry through your days, and the resilience with which you meet the countless invisible challenges that the world presents to your biology every single hour of your waking life. And it begins, like so many of the night's most important processes, in the deep, slow, rolling stillness of slow wave sleep. During the deep stages of the night, your body dramatically increases its production of proteins called cytokines, small but enormously powerful signaling molecules that serve as the immune system's communication network, coordinating the response to infection, inflammation, and cellular damage with a precision that the waking body, occupied with all the metabolic demands of conscious life, simply cannot match. Cytokines are released in their greatest abundance during sleep, and some of them are produced almost exclusively during sleep, which means that the body's capacity to fight illness, to repair tissue, and to maintain the delicate biological balance that we experience as health is directly and measurably tied to the quality and quantity of rest you allow yourself each night. The evidence for this connection is both elegant and striking. In one of the most vivid demonstrations of sleep's role in immune function, researchers exposed groups of volunteers to the common cold virus after carefully measuring their sleep habits over the preceding weeks. Those who had been sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night were 4 times more likely to develop a cold after exposure than those who had been sleeping 7 hours or more. Not slightly more likely, 4 times, a single number that carries within it the full, quiet weight of everything your immune system does for you while you rest, and everything it cannot do when rest is taken away. Your body also uses the deep hours of sleep to produce and distribute T cells, the immune system's highly trained specialist fighters that identify and destroy infected or abnormal cells with extraordinary accuracy. During sleep, T cells increase their ability to bind to their targets, a process made possible in part by the drop in certain stress hormones that occurs naturally when you rest, adrenaline and noradrenaline, which are present during waking hours and serve their own vital purposes in keeping you alert and responsive, also happen to interfere with the adhesion molecules that T cells use to grip and eliminate threats. When sleep lowers these hormones, it quietly removes that interference, allowing the T cells to do their work with full, unimpeded effectiveness. There is also the matter of immunological memory, the extraordinary ability of your immune system to remember every pathogen it has ever encountered and to mount a faster, stronger response upon any future exposure. This memory is not stored in the brain, but in specialized immune cells, and the formation and consolidation of immunological memory follows a pattern that will by now feel familiar to you. It is enhanced, deepened, and made more durable by sleep. Studies of vaccine responses have shown that people who sleep well in the nights following vaccination develop significantly stronger and longer-lasting immune protection than those who sleep poorly, as though the immune system, like the brain's memory library, uses the quiet hours of the night to file and reinforce what it has learned. As you lie here now, in the deep, breathing stillness of this nighttime story, wrapped in the soft weight of approaching sleep, you can let this knowledge settle into you, not as information to be analyzed, but as comfort to be felt. Your body is already preparing for all of this. The cytokines are beginning their quiet work. The T cells are readying themselves. The deep, restorative chemistry of a well-slept night is gathering itself around you, the way warmth gathers beneath a blanket, steady and enveloping, and completely, unconditionally yours. You are not simply resting. You are healing. You are strengthening. You are giving your body the one thing that no supplement, no medicine, no act of waking will or discipline can provide in quite the same way: the deep, faithful, profoundly necessary gift of genuine sleep. And it is already here, already holding you, already beginning the long, quiet, extraordinary work of making you well. There's a moment, deep in the stillness of a full night's sleep, when the body turns its attention entirely inward. The demands of the waking world have fallen completely away. The muscles that carried you through your day have grown soft and still. The eyes that took in all the light and color and movement of your waking hours are closed and quiet behind their lids. And in this profound, unhurried stillness, something begins that is so comprehensive, so beautifully coordinated across every system and every tissue of your body, that it can only be described as a renewal, a nightly, faithful, cellular restoration that reaches from the largest muscle in your body all the way down to the smallest, most delicate structures within your individual cells. At the heart of this physical restoration is one of the most powerful and important hormones the human body produces: human growth hormone, released in its greatest surge, not during exercise, not during the active hours of the day, but during the very first and deepest wave of slow wave sleep that arrives in the early part of the night. This surge of growth hormone, orchestrated by the pituitary gland in response to the deep, rolling delta waves moving through your sleeping brain, is the body's primary signal for physical repair. It stimulates the growth and regeneration of muscle tissue, accelerates the healing of small injuries and micro tears that accumulate in the body through ordinary daily movement, supports the maintenance and density of bone, and regulates the metabolism of fat and glucose in ways that keep the body's energy systems running with quiet, long-term efficiency. Children and adolescents, whose bodies are engaged in the active work of growing, release particularly large amounts of growth hormone during sleep, which is why the old wisdom that children grow while they sleep is not merely a gentle metaphor, but a precise biological truth. But adults continue to rely on this nightly hormonal surge throughout their entire lives, because the work of physical maintenance never ends, and the body never outgrows its need for the deep repair that only sleep makes fully possible. At the cellular level, sleep enables a process called autophagy, a word derived from the Greek for self-eating, though its reality is far more elegant than that name suggests. Autophagy is the body's internal housekeeping system, the process by which cells identify and break down their own damaged, dysfunctional, or no longer useful components, recycling the raw materials into new and healthy structures. It is, in the most literal sense, the body renewing itself from the inside out, clearing away the cellular debris of wear and use, and replacing it with fresh, functional material. Sleep, particularly deep, slow-wave sleep, is one of the most powerful activators of this cellular renewal process, which is why the quality of your rest has implications not just for how you feel in the morning, but for the long-term health and vitality of every tissue in your body. The skin, which is the body's largest organ, also does much of its deepest repair work during sleep. Blood flow to the skin increases during the night, delivering oxygen and nutrients to the cells of the dermis and epidermis, supporting collagen production and facilitating the repair of the small environmental damages that accumulate throughout the day from light, temperature, and the simple friction of living. The expression that someone looks rested is not merely a social observation. It is a description of a visible biological reality, because the skin of a well-slept person has genuinely been tended to in ways that are measurable and real. Your cardiovascular system also gratefully receives the gift of sleep. During the deep stages of the night, heart rate slows, blood pressure falls to its lowest point of the 24-hour cycle, and the walls of the blood vessels have a chance to rest and recover from the constant pressure of waking circulation. This nightly dip in blood pressure, known as nocturnal dipping, is considered so important to long-term cardiovascular health that the absence of it, seen in people who sleep poorly or too briefly, is associated with significantly elevated risk of heart disease and stroke. As you rest here now, in the deep, warm, wordless quiet of this calming sleep story, you can feel all of this happening. Or rather, you can simply trust that it is happening, because your body requires nothing from your conscious mind to perform these extraordinary acts of renewal. It only requires what you are already giving it right now: the gift of stillness, the gift of rest, the gift of a night surrendered fully and completely to sleep. Every cell in your body is being tended to. Every tissue is being quietly, faithfully restored. The whole magnificent architecture of you is being renewed from within. In the deep, soft, infinite kindness of the night, there is a particular kind of intelligence that only becomes fully available to you when you sleep. A loose, associative, boundary-dissolving quality of mind that the waking brain, with all its focused logic and linear reasoning, cannot quite access on its own. It is the intelligence of connections made across distances, of ideas drawn together from different corners of your experience, of solutions that arrive not through effort, but through surrender, not through concentration, but through the soft, wandering freedom of a mind released from the necessity of being practical. It is the creative intelligence of the sleeping brain, and it is responsible for some of the most remarkable and most celebrated discoveries and works of imagination in all of human history. The stories are numerous and wonderfully varied. The chemist Auguste Kekulé, struggling for years to understand the molecular structure of benzene, reportedly found his answer in a dream in which a snake appeared, curling around to bite its own tail. An image that led him directly to the insight that the molecule formed a ring rather than a chain. A discovery that transformed organic chemistry entirely. The musician Paul McCartney woke one morning with a complete melody in his head, so vivid and fully formed that he immediately went to the piano to play it before it could fade, certain at first that he must have heard it somewhere before rather than composed it in his sleep. The novelist Mary Shelley drew the core vision of Frankenstein from a waking dream, and the inventor Nikola Tesla described seeing his machines fully realized in a kind of dreamlike inner vision before he ever committed them to paper or metal. These are not coincidences. They are the visible, documented surface of a process that happens in every sleeping brain every night. The process by which the dreaming mind, freed from the constraints of waking logic, moves fluidly through the vast landscape of everything you know, making connections that deliberate thought would never have the latitude to discover. The neuroscience beneath these stories is as beautiful as the stories themselves. During REM sleep, the brain's prefrontal cortex, that region of careful, rational, rule-following thought, reduces its dominance, while the more associative and imaginative regions of the brain become more richly connected to one another. The result is a cognitive state that researchers sometimes call hyperassociative, one in which the usual boundaries between categories of thought are softened, in which distant ideas are more easily linked, in which the mind is simultaneously drawing on memory, emotion, sensory experience, and abstract pattern recognition in a way that produces combinations and insights that the focused waking mind would systematically filter out as implausible or irrelevant. This is why the solution to a creative problem so often arrives not during the hours of staring at it in concentration, but in the morning after a night of good sleep, arriving with a quiet certainty that feels less like thinking and more like remembering something you always knew. Sleep researchers have demonstrated this hyperassociative quality in controlled laboratory settings, presenting participants with puzzles that contained hidden rules that could be discovered through long, effortful analysis, or could be suddenly, effortlessly seen if the underlying pattern was recognized at a glance. Participants who slept between their initial exposure to the puzzle and their second attempt were nearly 3 times more likely to discover the hidden rule than those who remained awake, as though the sleeping brain had spent the night gently turning the problem over in its hands, examining it from angles the waking mind had not thought to try. There is also something deeply soothing in understanding that creativity is not purely a waking act, not purely the result of effort and will and the disciplined application of skill, but that it has a nocturnal dimension, a quiet, dreaming partner that works on your behalf in the dark, that takes what you have given it and finds within it possibilities you had not imagined. Every night of good sleep is a night in which your creative life is being quietly enriched, in which the raw material of your experience is being rearranged and reconnected in ways that will surface tomorrow as new ideas, unexpected solutions, and the particular freshness of a mind that has been allowed to dream. And as you drift now in the deepest, softest layers of this gentle bedtime story, your own dreaming mind is already beginning to stir at the edges, already beginning to gather the threads of your day, your memories, your questions, and your quiet hopes, already beginning the slow, extraordinary, and entirely effortless work of weaving them into something new. You do not need to guide it. You do not need to direct it. You only need to sleep and trust and rest, and let the dreaming intelligence that has always lived inside you do what it was always beautifully and naturally made to do. Sleep is not a fixed and unchanging thing. It is a living, shifting, beautifully adaptive process that moves and transforms alongside you through every chapter of your life, responding to the changing needs of your body and brain with the same quiet faithfulness that has characterized every other aspect of its extraordinary science. From the very first hours of existence, outside the womb, all the way through to the deep, reflective stillness of old age, the way you sleep, how much of it you need, when you need it, what it does for you, and how its different stages are proportioned through the night, changes in ways that are as profound and as meaningful as any other dimension of human development. And there is something deeply comforting in understanding these changes, because it reveals that however your sleep has shifted over the years, your body has always been responding intelligently to exactly what it needed most at each particular moment of your life. In the earliest days of life, a newborn baby sleeps for somewhere between 16 and 18 hours in every 24-hour period. And for very good reason. The brain of a newborn is engaged in the most intensive period of neural development it will ever experience, forming connections, building architecture, laying down the vast and intricate wiring that will eventually support every thought, every feeling, every memory, and every movement of an entire human life. REM sleep, which in adults occupies roughly 20 to 25% of the total night, accounts for nearly 50% of a newborn's sleep, because the dreaming, hyperconnected state of REM is precisely the neurological environment in which this extraordinary early brain development takes place most richly and most rapidly. as the weeks and months pass, and the infant brain begins to consolidate its architecture. Sleep gradually organizes itself into longer, more structured periods, the proportion of REM slowly decreasing as the most urgent phase of neural construction begins to settle. By early childhood, the need for sleep remains high, typically between 10 and 13 hours, and deep, slow-wave sleep is abundant, supporting not only the continued development of the brain, but the physical growth that is proceeding so rapidly through these early years. The surge of growth hormone that accompanies each night's deep sleep is particularly powerful in childhood, which is why children who sleep well tend to grow more steadily and recover from illness more quickly than those whose rest is disrupted. Adolescence brings one of the most significant and widely misunderstood shifts in the entire lifespan of human sleep. During puberty, the circadian rhythm undergoes a genuine biological change, a phase delay, in which the internal clock shifts later, making it naturally difficult for teenagers to feel sleepy before midnight, and naturally difficult for them to wake early in the morning. This is not laziness or defiance of routine. It is a documented neurological shift driven by the hormonal changes of puberty that moves the entire sleep-wake cycle several hours later than it was in childhood, and several hours later than it will be again in adulthood. A teenager lying awake at 11 o'clock at night is not resisting sleep. Their brain has genuinely not yet received the melatonin signal that would allow sleep to come, and forcing an early wake time cuts short the deep, REM-rich sleep of the morning hours that their developing brain urgently needs. In adulthood, sleep needs settle into a range of 7 to 9 hours for most people, with slow-wave sleep gradually becoming less abundant as the decades pass, and REM sleep remaining relatively stable. The sleep of midlife and the years beyond is often lighter and more easily disrupted than the deep, immovable sleep of youth, and the reasons for this are partly structural. The brain produces less of the slow-wave activity that characterized the deep sleep of earlier years, and partly circumstantial, as the responsibilities and stresses of adult life create more occasion for the kind of waking that lighter sleep makes more likely. In older age, the sleep architecture continues to shift. Sleep tends to become earlier, lighter, and more fragmented, with more frequent awakenings through the night, and a greater proportion of the lighter nun and entwo stages relative to the deep, slow-wave sleep of younger years. But the need for sleep does not disappear. The body's requirement for rest, for the nightly renewal of every system, for the emotional processing of REM, and the physical restoration of deep sleep remains as real and as important at 80 as it was at 8. As you rest here now, in the soft, breathing quiet of this nighttime story, in whatever chapter of life you currently inhabit, you can feel the deep wisdom of your body's relationship with sleep, ancient, adaptive, and endlessly attentive to what you need. The night holds you exactly as it has always held you, from your very first breath to this one, faithful and warm and completely, unconditionally yours. There's a moment that arrives in the middle of almost every day, somewhere between the early afternoon hours usually between 1 and 3 o'clock, when the body sends a quiet, unmistakable signal that it would very much like to pause. A gentle heaviness descends behind the eyes. The thoughts slow slightly. The energy that carried you briskly through the morning loses some of its momentum, like a river approaching a wide, shallow stretch where the current naturally calms and spreads. Most people in the modern world interpret this signal as a problem, a failure of discipline, a consequence of an inadequate lunch, a weakness to be overcome with another cup of coffee, and a determined return to productivity. But the science of sleep tells a very different and far more forgiving story, because this afternoon dip is not a malfunction. It is not a side effect of eating or a sign of laziness. It is a built-in feature of the human circadian rhythm, a second, smaller biological valley in the daily cycle of alertness that appears in virtually every human being regardless of culture, climate, diet, or habit. And that has been part of our species' relationship with rest for as long as we have existed. The biological basis of this afternoon dip lies in the same circadian machinery that governs your nightly sleep. Approximately 7 to 8 hours after waking, the body experiences a natural trough in its core temperature and alertness cycle, a miniature version of the larger descent that will come again in the evening, softer and briefer, but real and measurable. Many cultures throughout human history recognized this rhythm instinctively and built their daily lives around it. The siesta traditions of Mediterranean and Latin American cultures, the afternoon rest practices common across parts of Asia and the Middle East, the quiet midday pauses that characterized pre-industrial life in many parts of the world before the demands of modern schedules overrode the body's natural preferences. The great nappers of history understood something that sleep science has now confirmed with considerable precision: that a short, deliberately taken period of sleep in the afternoon can restore alertness, improve mood, enhance cognitive performance, and consolidate the morning's learning in ways that are disproportionately powerful relative to the brief time they require. Winston Churchill famously napped every afternoon without exception, crediting his midday rest with giving him what he described as 2 working days in one. Albert Einstein was known to take frequent short naps, and NASA research conducted on its astronauts and pilots found that a nap of just 40 minutes improved performance by 34% and alertness by 100%. Numbers so striking that they read less like scientific findings and more like an advertisement for something too good to be true, except that they are entirely, carefully, and rigorously real. The science of nap length is one of the more precise and practically useful areas of sleep research. A nap of 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes called a power nap, is long enough to deliver the light, restorative sleep of none and early entwo, boosting alertness and mood without allowing the brain to descend into the deeper stages of sleep that, if interrupted, produce the groggy, disoriented feeling known as sleep inertia. A nap of approximately 90 minutes, on the other hand, allows the brain to complete a full sleep cycle, including both slow-wave sleep and REM, delivering a more comprehensive restoration that includes memory consolidation, and emotional processing. Though it requires more time and a more relaxed schedule to be practical, there's also a charming technique, reportedly used by both Thomas Edison and Salvador Dali, that occupies the very shortest end of the napping spectrum, holding an object, a key, or a steel ball, loosely in the hand while sitting in a chair and allowing sleep to begin. At the precise moment of transition into unconsciousness, the muscles relax, the object falls. The sound of it hitting the floor wakes the sleeper, and they arise having captured just the very first moments of non-sleep, that hypnagogic threshold where the mind begins to make its loose, associative leaps, and carrying back with them whatever creative sparks the falling edge of wakefulness had just begun to generate as you rest here now, in the deep, unhurried quiet of this calming sleep story, far beyond any afternoon and deep into the full, generous embrace of a complete night's rest. You can let the image of all those great restful minds settle softly around you. Churchill in his darkened room, Einstein with his quiet eyes closed, the long, golden tradition of human beings throughout history, who understood that rest is not the opposite of living fully, but one of its most essential and most beautifully human expressions. There is something quietly profound in the realization that sleep is not uniquely human. It is not a habit particular to one species or one corner of the animal kingdom, not a cultural invention or a biological accident confined to the mammals that walk upright and build cities and lie in beds beneath warm blankets, listening to gentle stories in the dark. Sleep, in one form or another, is shared by virtually every creature that has ever been studied, from the largest whale moving in slow, dreaming arcs through the deep ocean to the smallest fruit fly resting its transparent wings on a leaf in the warm afternoon. And this universality speaks to something ancient and essential about rest itself, something written so deeply into the fabric of life that evolution has preserved it across hundreds of millions of years, and an almost incomprehensible diversity of bodies and brains. Dolphins and whales have found one of the most elegant solutions to the particular challenge of being an air-breathing animal that lives in water and cannot afford to lose consciousness completely. They sleep with only half of their brain at a time. One hemisphere enters sleep while the other remains alert, keeping one eye open, maintaining enough awareness to surface for air, to monitor the environment, to continue swimming in slow, steady circles. Then, after a period of time, the hemispheres switch. The resting half wakes, and the alert half takes its turn to sleep. In a continuous, rolling alternation that allows the animal to rest and remain conscious simultaneously. This phenomenon, called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, is one of the most astonishing adaptations in all of sleep science. A reminder that evolution will find a way to preserve rest even when the circumstances of a creature's life make conventional sleep seem impossible. Birds use a version of this same strategy, particularly when they need to remain vigilant during long migratory flights, sleeping with one hemisphere at a time, one eye open, navigating and resting in the same breath. Some swift species have been tracked, spending months aloft, and researchers believe they are capable of sleeping on the wing, their bodies riding the air currents, while their brains take turns resting in those alternating hemispheric waves. The idea of sleeping while flying through the night sky carries within it a particular kind of dreamlike beauty that feels entirely appropriate to this gentle story. Other animals have found rest in places and postures that seem at first improbable. Horses can sleep standing up, locking their legs into a passive stay apparatus that holds them upright without muscular effort. Though they must lie down to achieve the deeper stages of sleep that complete their rest. See otters sleep floating on the surface of the water, often holding hands with other otters in their group, so that the current does not separate them while they rest. A behavior so endearing that it has become one of the most beloved images in the natural world. A small, floating community of creatures holding gently to one another in the dark. Fish sleep too, though without eyelids to close. Their rest is expressed through a quiet, hovering stillness, a reduced responsiveness to the world around them, a slowing of movement and metabolism that serves the same restorative purposes as sleep in creatures with more obvious signs of unconsciousness. Even insects sleep. Fruit flies, deprived of rest, show the same signs of sleep deprivation seen in mammals, becoming cognitively impaired and dying early. Their tiny nervous systems as dependent on the restoration of sleep as any human brain resting on a pillow in the dark. And plants, though they do not sleep in any neurological sense, follow circadian rhythms of their own, opening and closing their leaves and flowers in response to light and darkness in daily cycles that mirror, in their own quiet botanical way, the same ancient relationship with the rhythm of the earth that governs every sleeping creature beneath the same turning sky. As you rest here now, in the deep, warm, wordless quiet of this sleep story, you can let that image expand softly around you, the whole living world resting together in its countless different ways beneath the same dark sky. The dolphin with its half-sleeping brain, the swift on its dreaming wing, the otters holding hands on the still water, the horse standing quietly in the moonlit field, and you here, breathing slowly, held in the same ancient, universal, endlessly faithful embrace of sleep that has cradled every living thing since life first learned that rest was not the end of living, but one of its most necessary and most beautiful beginnings. And so, here you are. You have traveled a long and gentle way tonight through the architecture of your sleeping brain, through the ancient clock that has always known when to carry you toward rest, through the dreaming country where creativity and emotion are quietly, faithfully tended. You have drifted through the brain's nightly cleansing tide, through the library that never closes, through the deep cellular renewal that has been preparing itself for you since the very first moment your eyes grew heavy and the world began to soften at its edges. You have rested in the knowledge that your immune system is working, that your memories are being shelved and sorted, that your emotions are being smoothed and soothed, that every cell in your body is being held and tended with a care so comprehensive and so constant that no waking act of will could ever come close to replicating it. And you have felt, perhaps, the quiet comfort of knowing that you are not alone in this, that the whole living world rests alongside you in its own extraordinary variety of ways. Beneath the same vast and patient darkness, there is nothing more required of you now. Not a single thought to complete, not a single question to answer, not a single thing to hold or carry or tend to until morning. The 100 facts of sleep science and sleep psychology that have drifted through this long, quiet night have not been asking you to remember them. They have simply been company, soft and steady company, like a lamp burning low in a room where someone you trust is sitting quietly nearby, requiring nothing from you, offering only their warm and wordless presence as you rest. What they leave behind is not information, but feeling. A deep, bone-level sense of being held by something larger than any single night, by the ancient biological wisdom of a body that has always known how to do this, that was doing this long before you had any conscious understanding of it, that will continue doing this with the same quiet faithfulness every night for the rest of your extraordinary life. Your breathing has slowed now to its own natural pace, unhurried and unconscious, moving in and out like the slow tide of a very calm and very distant sea. Your body has grown heavy in the way that only real rest produces, not the heaviness of exhaustion or effort, but the soft, warm, surrendered heaviness of a person who has genuinely let go, who has placed themselves down gently into the hands of sleep and felt those hands receive them completely. The thoughts that remain, if any remain at all, are not thoughts so much as impressions, fragments of image, and feeling that drift past without attaching, like leaves on a slow river that you are watching from a great and comfortable distance. The dolphin is sleeping somewhere in the dark water, one eye softly open, the other already dreaming. The swift is riding the night air on motionless wings, its small brain resting in its own gentle alternation. The otters are floating somewhere on a still and moonlit surface, their paws loosely linked, rising and falling with the breathing of the water. And somewhere in the deep, patient soil, a seed is waiting in its own long, unhurried stillness, holding everything it needs inside itself, trusting entirely and without doubt that when the right moment comes, it will know exactly what to do. You are like that seed right now, still and whole and full of everything you need, needing nothing more than the darkness and the quiet and the slow, faithful passage of the night to do its gentle, extraordinary work inside you. The glymphatic tide is moving through your brain in long, clean waves, carrying away the residue of the day. The growth hormone is moving through your blood, tending to every tissue, renewing every cell. The sleep spindles are firing in soft, rhythmic bursts, weaving the day's experiences into the warm fabric of your long-term memory. And somewhere in the country of dreams, just beyond the last thin edge of waking awareness, something patient and creative and entirely yours is waiting to take what the day gave you and find within it something beautiful. Let all of it. Let the night do what the night has always done. Let the sleep take you the rest of the way, gently, completely, without effort or resistance, the way water finds its level, the way a breath finds its end, the way every living thing on this quiet, spinning earth finds its way, sooner or later, into the deep and healing and endlessly merciful arms of rest. You are already there. You have been there for some time now, and the morning, when it comes, will find you restored and whole and ready. But that is a very long way away. For now, there is only this: the dark, the quiet, the slow and certain tide. Sleep well. There is one final and deeply practical gift that sleep science offers you. Not a wonder from the animal kingdom or a discovery made in a distant laboratory, but something you can carry with you into every night that follows this one. A set of quiet understandings about the conditions under which sleep arrives most willingly, most deeply, and most generously. Sleep researchers call this sleep hygiene, though the word hygiene carries a clinical sharpness that does not quite do justice to what is really being described, which is something far softer and more intuitive. The gentle art of creating the conditions that sleep has always preferred, of arranging your evenings in a way that works with the ancient biological wisdom of your circadian rhythm rather than against it, of giving your body and your brain the quiet permission they need to do what they already, always know how to do. The first and perhaps most powerful of these conditions is consistency. The simple, steady habit of going to sleep and waking at approximately the same time each day, including the days when no alarm is set and no obligation is waiting. Your circadian clock, that tiny cluster of nerve cells in the suprachiasmatic nucleus that has been your faithful internal timekeeper since before you were born, thrives on regularity the way a garden thrives on reliable rain. When your sleep and wake times are consistent, the clock can anticipate them, can begin releasing melatonin at exactly the right moment, can orchestrate the full, beautifully sequenced architecture of your sleep cycle with the confidence of something that knows precisely when it is needed and precisely what to do. Irregular sleep schedules, on the other hand, create a kind of perpetual internal confusion, a state that researchers sometimes compare to living in a permanent, low-grade version of jet lag, in which the body's systems are always slightly out of phase with each other, never quite synchronized, never quite able to deliver the full depth of rest that consistency would allow. The temperature of your sleeping environment is another of sleep's quiet preferences, and one that the science understands very precisely. As you learned in the earlier chapters of this long, gentle night, the body's core temperature naturally falls as sleep approaches, part of the circadian choreography that prepares the brain and body for the descent into rest. A cool sleeping environment, somewhere between 15 and 19 degrees Celsius for most people, supports and amplifies this natural temperature drop, making it easier for the body to reach and maintain the deep, slow-wave sleep that does so much of the night's restorative work. A room that is too warm gently but persistently disrupts this process, keeping the body slightly too alert, slightly too metabolically active for the deepest sleep to fully establish itself. Light is perhaps the most powerful of all the environmental factors that shape your sleep, because it speaks directly and immediately to the suprachiasmatic nucleus through a dedicated neural pathway from the eyes, resetting the circadian clock with every significant exposure. The blue wavelength light emitted by screens, phones, tablets, computers, televisions, is particularly potent in this regard because it closely mimics the spectrum of morning daylight that the circadian clock uses as its primary signal that the day has begun and sleep should end, exposing the brain to this signal in the hour or two before bed quietly, but effectively delays the melatonin release that would otherwise be drawing you towards sleep, pushing the onset of genuine sleepiness later into the night, and compressing the total sleep time available before morning. The solution is as simple and as ancient as the problem. In the final hour before sleep, let the light grow soft and warm and dim, the way the light of an evening has always grown before the night arrived, and allow your brain to receive the message it has been waiting for since before electric light existed, the message that says the day is ending and the dark is coming, and it is time now to rest. As you drift in the deep, warm stillness of this final chapter, you can let all of these quiet understandings settle into you, not as rules or requirements, but as gifts, small, practical expressions of the same profound respect for sleep that this entire long and gentle night has been offering you. Your body already knows all of this. It has always known. Every night it asks, with quiet faithfulness, only for the conditions that allow it to do its most extraordinary work. The cleaning, the healing, the dreaming, the remembering, the renewing, and every night that you offer it those conditions, it responds with everything it has, holding you through the dark hours with a care that is as ancient and as generous and as unconditional as sleep itself. There is something your body has been doing every single night of your life that you have never once had to consciously arrange or deliberately manage. Something so deeply embedded in your biology, so thoroughly woven into the very fabric of what you are, that it continues regardless of whether you understand it, regardless of whether you trust it, regardless of whether you even believe in its extraordinary power. It simply happens night after night, year after year, decade after decade, through every season of your life and every chapter of your experience. The body turns toward sleep the way a flower turns toward light, not because it decides to, not because it remembers to, but because it is made for it, because rest is not something imposed upon the body from outside, but something that arises from within it as natural and as necessary, and as effortlessly right as a breath drawn in the dark. Sleep scientists speak of something called sleep drive, that accumulating biological pressure that builds through the waking hours as adenosine rises, and the circadian rhythm descends toward its evening valley. But the phrase, precise as it is, does not quite capture the full quality of what the body actually does when it moves toward rest. Drive suggests effort, suggests something pushing from behind. What the body does with sleep is something softer than that, something more like a leaning, a slow, faithful leaning toward the dark the way tall grass leans in a gentle and persistent wind, yielding without resistance, moving without force, arriving at rest not through struggle, but through the quiet giving way of everything that was holding itself upright through the long, bright hours of the day. The psychology of sleep teaches us that this leaning cannot be forced. You cannot will yourself to sleep the way you can will yourself, to stand or speak or reach for something across a table. Sleep exists in exactly the space where willpower ends, where the effortful, controlling, managing part of the mind releases its grip and allows the deeper, older, wiser biological systems to take over. This is why the harder you try to sleep on a difficult night, the more elusive sleep becomes, because trying is itself a form of wakefulness, a signal to the nervous system that something requires attention, that vigilance is still needed, that the moment for surrender has not yet arrived. The most effective thing you can ever do in pursuit of sleep is, paradoxically, to stop pursuing it, to release the effort, to soften the intention, to allow your attention to drift towards something slow and gentle and undemanding, like the words of a quiet story drifting through the dark, and to trust that the sleep which has come for you every night of your life will come for you again tonight, in its own time, in its own way, with the same faithful and unhurried certainty it has always carried. There is also a profound and comforting truth in what sleep psychology calls the two-way relationship between the body and the mind during rest. The understanding that the physical and the psychological dimensions of sleep are not separate systems operating in parallel, but a single, integrated, deeply reciprocal process in which each supports and deepens the other. When the body is warm and still and comfortable, the mind finds it easier to release its hold on the day. When the mind is calm and untroubled and gently occupied with something soft and undemanding, the body finds it easier to descend into the deeper stages of sleep. They accompany each other downward, the way two people walking together in the dark naturally slow their pace to match, naturally quiet their voices, naturally draw closer to each other as the light fades and the path grows still. Right now, in this moment, in this breath, and the one that follows it, your body and your mind are doing exactly that, walking together quietly toward the deepest and most restorative rest that this long and gentle night has been preparing for you since the very first word of this sleep story was spoken into the dark. The science has all been delivered now. The facts have drifted past like lanterns on a slow river, each one glowing softly for a moment before moving on, leaving behind not memory, but warmth, not knowledge, but the particular and deeply personal comfort of feeling held by something vast and ancient and entirely on your side. You do not need to carry any of it. You do not need to remember a single word. All you need to know, all you have ever needed to know, is that your body is wise, and the night is long, and the sleep that has always come for you is already here, already holding you, already carrying you in its slow and faithful current toward morning. There is a particular quality to the night sky that human beings have always found deeply, instinctively calming. Something in the vast, unhurried sweep of it, something in the way the stars hold their positions with such patient stillness, something in the sheer immensity of the darkness between them that makes every earthly concern feel gently, mercifully small. Long before sleep science existed, long before anyone understood adenosine or melatonin or the glymphatic system or the extraordinary cycling architecture of the sleeping brain, human beings lay down beneath that sky, and looked up at it in the last moments before sleep and felt, without needing to be told why, that the universe was larger than their worries and older than their fears, and that the dark was not something to be afraid of, but something to be received, the way you receive a blanket drawn over you by someone who cares for you deeply and wants nothing more than for you to rest, the stars that you might imagine above you now. If you allow your mind to drift in that direction, softly and without effort, the way it drifts in the first loose moments of sleep are not decorations on the ceiling of the night. They are suns, each one of them, burning at distances so vast that the light reaching your eyes left its source years, decades, centuries, sometimes thousands of years ago. The soft light of the night sky is ancient light, patient light that has been traveling through the silent dark for longer than any human civilization has existed, arriving here now, at this particular moment in which you happen to be lying still and breathing slowly and allowing yourself to rest. There is something in that thought that carries a particular and wordless comfort, the sense of being a small and temporary and utterly precious part of something immeasurably large, something that was here long before you arrived and will continue long after, something that holds your brief and beautiful life, the way the ocean holds a single, perfect wave. Sleep psychology speaks of a state called parasympathetic dominance, the mode of the nervous system in which the body is fully released from the alert, responsive, action-ready state of waking life and given over entirely to rest, repair, and restoration. It is the state in which the heart beats slowly and the breath comes easily and the muscles hold no unnecessary tension, and the mind releases its grip on every thought that does not need to be thought right now, which is to say, every thought at all. Parasympathetic dominance is the physiological signature of deep safety, the body's way of declaring, through its chemistry and its electrical rhythms, that the environment is calm, that no threat requires attention, that the long, faithful work of restoration can proceed without interruption. You are in that state right now, or very close to it, your nervous system settling into its most ancient and most generous mode, the one it reserves for the hours when the world has gone quiet and the body is finally completely free to tend to itself. The breath is the simplest and most immediate pathway into this state, and it is always available to you, always just one slow exhale away from being exactly what you need. When you breathe out slowly, longer than the breath in, soft and unhurried and complete, you activate the vagus nerve, that long wandering pathway that runs from the brainstem through the heart and the lungs and the digestive system, carrying the parasympathetic signal of calm and safety to every organ it touches. Each long, slow exhale is a message sent through the entire length of your body, saying it is safe, it is quiet, it is time, you can let go now, you can rest. Everything is being taken care of. Everything that needs to be done is already being done. The night is long and the dark is kind, and the sleep that has always come for you is here. So let this breath out slowly now. Let the next one come in its own time, without any hurrying, without any managing. And let the one after that be slower still, and softer, and more complete, and more surrendered than any breath you have taken tonight. The stars are above you in their ancient, patient stillness. The living world is resting all around you in its extraordinary variety of quiet forms. Your body is doing everything it knows how to do, which is everything that needs to be done. And this long, gentle, unhurried sleep story has brought you all the way to here, to this breath, this dark, this deep and faithful and completely unconditional rest. There is nowhere else to go. There is nothing else to do. There is only this soft and endless night, and you, resting in the very center of it, held, and here at last is where this long and gentle and extraordinarily patient night comes to its softest and most unhurried close, not with any abruptness, not with any sharp edge or sudden silence, but in the way that all good nights end, gradually, tenderly, like the last of a candle's light, dissolving into the dark without drama, without ceremony, simply fading until it is gone, and the room is full of a darkness so complete and so warm and so familiar that you cannot quite remember what it was like before it arrived. You have traveled so far tonight. You have drifted through the architecture of your own sleeping brain, through the ancient clock that has been keeping faithful time inside you since before you were old enough to know what time was. You have passed through the dreaming country and the brain's nightly cleansing tide, and the library where your memories are shelved with such quiet care. You have rested in the knowledge of your immune system's faithful labor, of your cells renewing themselves in the dark, of the creative intelligence that stirs in the REM-lit hours of the early morning and weaves your experience into something richer and more whole. You have heard how the whole living world rests alongside you. The dolphin with its half-dreaming brain, the swift on its motionless wing, the otter floating on the still and moonlit water. And you have felt, perhaps, the particular and wordless comfort of belonging to something that large, something that ancient, something that holds every living thing in the same faithful and unconditional embrace of rest. All of that is behind you now, or rather it is beneath you, supporting you the way the deepest layers of the ocean support the surface, invisibly and completely, and without any effort at all. You do not need to think about any of it. You do not need to hold any of it. It has done its work simply by passing through the soft, half-listening awareness that you brought to this long, gentle night, leaving behind not facts, but feeling, the deep, settled, bone-level feeling of a person who has been reminded in the most soothing and unhurried way possible that their body is extraordinary, that the night is generous, and that sleep is not something that happens to you, but something that your entire magnificent biology reaches toward every single evening with the same quiet and faithful longing that the tide reaches toward the shore. Your breathing is your own now. This story has done everything it came to do. It has kept you company through the long descent from wakefulness into rest. It has filled the silence with something soft and steady and undemanding. The way distant rain fills a quiet room, not requiring your attention, not asking anything of you, simply being there, simply continuing, simply offering its gentle and patient presence until you no longer needed it, until the sleep that was always coming had finally, completely arrived, and now the words can grow quieter. can become, if they have not already, simply sound, warm and continuous, and as meaningless as the sound of a slow river heard from a great distance, carrying nothing that needs to be understood, asking nothing that needs to be answered, flowing on in its own unhurried way toward a horizon you will never need to see. The night is at its deepest now. The world outside is still. Whatever was left of the day, its weight, its noise, its accumulated demands and unfinished edges, has dissolved entirely into the dark, the way everything dissolves eventually into the dark, gently and without resistance and without loss. And you are here, still, breathing, held by the mattress beneath you and the warmth around you, and the ancient, faithful, endlessly generous biology of a body that has been taking care of you through every night of your life, and will continue taking care of you through every night to come. There's nothing left to do. There is nowhere left to go. The science has been told. The story has been told. The night has received you completely, and the morning is a long, long way away. And between here and there is nothing but the deep and healing and perfectly silent dark. Sleep now. Sleep deeply and completely, and without any effort at all. Let the last of these words dissolve into the quiet the way the last light dissolves at evening, slowly, softly, without any fuss, until there is nothing left but the dark and the silence and the slow and faithful rhythm of your own breathing, steady as the turning of the earth, gentle as the light that is already, somewhere very far away, beginning its patient journey back toward morning. Good night, sleep well, and thank you for resting here tonight.